Hi folks, welcome back to STEAMWorks, Season 1, all about cars. My name is Simona and I'm here at Flux Space in our makerspace. In this episode, we're going to be making a rubber band car. So here we have all the materials. We have some tools I'm gonna need, my hot glue gun, very important. We have our rubber bands. We also have an enormous rubber band. We have a wooden dowel. We have 4 of these binder clips, 2 really tiny little hooks, and then our cardboard frame. I laser cut this frame just to be fancy. You could totally cut it out with scissors, but let's get started. Our frame consists of a couple different parts. We have this cardboard wheel, and so what's actually pretty cool about this wheel is that the back wheels for the car are built in. We laser cut this all in one piece to conserve material. But so right now I'm gonna pop out our back wheels. We don't actually need 4 back wheels, but that is just how we cut out this big one. So here is our back wheel minus the front wheels. The frame of the car itself, the body of the car, is really wide on the front, and it has space right here to house this big wheel. And we're gonna put the 2 smaller wheels over here on this end. The last piece of the frame is these 2 really tiny supports. These are gonna hold the axle for the big wheel. So we're gonna start by gluing these in place with our hot glue gun. So as this dries, we're gonna start working on the wheels. We're gonna start with the big wheel. The axle for this wheel is gonna be this big wooden dowel. So I'm gonna use the pencil to start the hole so I can push this right through. And we're gonna also glue this dowel in place. I don't need too much space on either side of this wheel, but I do want it to be able to stretch from either side of these little perpendicular supports that I put. So I'm gonna cut this with these crazy scissors here, about 1 inch on either side. I should have cut this before, shouldn't I?
What in tarnation you trying to do?
There we go. Alrighty, I will pick that up later, but here we go, that's the axle. So I'm gonna glue this in place as well. And just like with our car last week, we wanna be really careful to get everything as perpendicular as possible so that the car rolls in a straight line as it travels. In order to power this back wheel, we're gonna use these minuscule little hooks that we just happen to have in the makerspace. You can buy these at a hardware store. And I am going to screw these in on either side of my dowel. I'm gonna do this by hand. I'm gonna need to put in a good amount of force. These hooks are gonna be useful because that is what the rubber band is gonna loop onto to power this car. I'm gonna do the same thing there on both sides. Alrighty. So this is our big wheel all ready to go. So now I'm gonna work on the smaller wheels. All right, I'm gonna do the exact same thing that we did for the big wheel. I'm gonna use my pencil to start the hole, and I'm gonna push this dowel right through and glue it in place. And just like before, you wanna make sure that the dowel and wheel are as perpendicular as possible. We're gonna wanna position our second wheel so that it is pretty close to the distance of the front of our frame of the car. Alrighty, so we've got our big wheel with its axle and the 2 little hooks that are gonna drive this wheel. We've also got our front wheels. So we're gonna start by attaching these to the frame. And I decided to use binder clips to attach these wheels just to mix it up a little bit. So all we're gonna do is clip the wheel and then clip the body of our car. And I'm gonna put 2 binder clips on here just to keep everything symmetrical. And that rolls pretty well. There's not too much friction there. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna put this enormous rubber band around this big wheel. This is a little tricky. You kind of need like 4 hands to do this, and tragically I only have 2. Oh my goodness, who knew this would be the hardest part? Here we have it. So we've got our big wheel with the rubber band around it.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never.
All right, let's try that again. So there we have it. We have our wheel and we have our rubber band to increase friction between the wheel and the floor. This wheel is gonna rest inside the little supports we added, and it rotates pretty well in there, so that's a good sign. In order to attach this wheel to the car, this is where our rubber bands come in. So we're gonna loop the rubber bands around these tiny little hooks that we attach to the axle. And now we're gonna attach these rubber bands to the car. So we're gonna attach these rubber bands to the frame of the car with our last 2 binder clips on this car. So I'm gonna clip the front, as you see, and also the back. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So here we go. We've got our wheel that's turning pretty well, and our smaller wheels are also turning pretty well. For our final test, we're gonna make sure that our torque, our rubber band torque works. So I'm just gonna wind this up. Let's see how many times I can wind this.
Congratulations!
I have completely forgotten my closing.
This is a load of barnacles.
If you followed along this video and made your own car, please drop a comment. I would love to see what you came up with. If you have suggestions on how I can improve this car, I would also love to hear those. Tune in to next week's episode. We're going to be making balloon-powered cars. See you then.